If you have Mr. Murray as a teacher, you may be familiar with his one-liners or jokes he likes to say that sometimes make people laugh. Well, there's this one specific line that he says with my pre-calc class, like every single day, that lines up perfectly with what I want to tell to you today. And that's this. Meaning, if you make a mistake or Mr. Murray makes a mistake, there's no need to dwell on it. I am sharing this with you today because most people overthink things before they do them. However, I am spontaneous, or maybe the right word is just impulsive, and I do things impulsively and then I overthink them a lot after, and I don't want you guys to do that as much as I do. So the points I have for you today are you can't change the past, my experience and the experience of others, and how to look towards the future. The truth is, we've all had moments in our lives where we've said or did something and immediately regret it. The good thing is we don't have to dwell on that for the rest of our lives. Because, in all honesty, you can't change the past. You can't redo that moment that you just did. So there's no point in dwelling on it. Reminiscing on the past is like reading the same chapter in a book over and over again and expecting a different ending when in reality it's not going to happen. So there's no need to keep dwelling on it. Mistakes could be anything like saying a wrong answer in class, and in that case you might feel something like this. And I'm going to be honest, nobody else remembers it because probably nobody was listening very well. Or on a more serious note, you could have crossed the line and ended a friendship. In that case, you might not feel silly, but you might feel like you made a terrible mistake. In those cases, it's good to remember that we are not alone. Everybody makes mistakes, even the most famous of people. Michael Yardley, a #1 best-selling author of 9 books, wrote about famous people who had to fail before they succeeded. Such as Walt Disney was fired from the Kansas City Star because he lacked imagination. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first TV show and was told she was unfit for television. And Colonel Sanders' now famous chicken recipe was rejected 1,009 times before finding success. Now, although these people didn't specifically make these mistakes, who knows if they would be as successful today if they hadn't failed in the first place. As for my experience, if you don't know, I live south of town a few miles, and there's 2 ways for me to get into town. There is the longer way, which usually takes me about 15 to 18 minutes depending on how fast I drive, but it is safer with the pavement all the way into town, or there's the little bit shorter way, but also riskier way because it's gravel all the way into town, and it takes me about 10 to 12 minutes. Now, my dad always tells me to take the Catherine Road because it's safer, and I'm a little stubborn, so I don't always like to listen to him. And last summer, after a night shift, I got done working at 9, right about dusk, and I just really wanted to get home. And I was like, how would he find out if I ever took the shortcut? So I was driving super cautious on the gravel road, like there's no way he's gonna find out about this. And then a total jam came on, the song Swingin' by John Anderson, and I was just jamming out, and then all of a sudden I hit a deer. It's like, oh, duh. So I stopped and then went to check out the damage. I was like, maybe I didn't hit it that hard, maybe I can still get away with this. Yeah, that was not the case. My grill was gone, my license plate was nowhere in sight, and pieces of my car were still scattered on the road, and there was a dead deer in the ditch. So I drove home with tears in my eyes because not only did I just kill a deer, I disobeyed my father, and I hit a deer while doing it. He's not going to appreciate either of those things. So as I got back to the house, I told him what happened. He checked out the car, and he made me drive him back to where I hit the deer, and we had a talk on the way there, and I'm sure you guys can all imagine about how that went. But the biggest thing I learned from this was my dad doesn't just tell me these things because he's stubborn or he thinks he wants me to take the long way into town. Like, he tells me these things because he wants me to stay safe. And along with everything he tells me, our parents are looking out for us, and that's the biggest thing I took out from that mistake. So now that I've reminded myself and everybody else here that we're all human, I'd like to give some advice on how to look towards the future. So as I mentioned earlier, we cannot change the past, but the important thing is we can change the future. We can learn from our mistakes, and we can grow as people. Famous philanthropist and multi-billionaire George Soros words it perfectly. There's no shame in being wrong, only in failing to correct your mistakes. Mistakes are good. It's our natural way as humans to learn. We learn by making mistakes. And the biggest advice I have for you today is to shift your attitude to gratitude. Without hardships in our lives, without hard experiences, and without even mistakes, we would be totally different people than we are today. These experiences are what shape us as people, so we should be thankful. And you may be wondering how I got my next play title. For me, it started in my first season of JV varsity volleyball, and in a sport where literally the team that makes the most mistakes wins, or least amount of mistakes wins, it is hard to keep a good attitude because there's a mistake being made every single play. So, as a team, we came up with saying next play, because even if you make a mistake this one play, you can always make up for it in the next play. And that goes along with the real world, because whether that next play is an apology or anything else, there are many ways to make things right. So the points I shared with you today are: you cannot change the past, my experience and the experiences of others, and how to look towards the future. If I had to choose one thing that you guys gained from this today, it would be that you don't let the past hold you back, but let it motivate you for the future.